What building could be called complete without a roof over its head? Revit gives us a few ways to approach building roofs. In this movie, we're going to look at the footprint roof, which is probably the most common approach to creating a roof. And in many ways, the procedure is nearly identical to creating floors, which we looked at in the Adding Floors movie. Roofs are also sketch-based objects, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm in a file called Adding Roofs. It's the same small office building that we used when we were adding floors. And I'm on a floor plan called High Roof. This particular building actually has 2 roof levels, and this is the higher one. So we're going to go to the Roof tool on the Home tab. And this is, again, a sketch-based object, so you're going to see the model gray out and the familiar sketch-based tools appear. Like our floors before, we get a boundary line, we get pick walls as the default behaviors. We're not obligated to use those. We certainly could sketch our roof in any shape using any tool that we like, but usually it's most convenient to start with the existing walls. Now, before we start clicking on screen, I want to take a quick look at the options bar as well, because here we're going to see that we can tell each of our sketch lines whether or not they should define slope. Now, many roofs are actually sloping roofs, and so by checking this box, the sketch we draw will actually behave kind of like a hinge. So that sketch line will actually define a plane that's sloping. We also can define overhangs. So often there are overhangs associated with pitched roofs. And finally, we have the same extend into wall core that you may have seen if you did the Adding Floors movie. So this just makes the sketch line interact with the core of the wall. So what I'm going to do for the first example is go ahead and leave Define Slope turned on. I'm going to leave the overhang set to 2 feet as you see it here. Make sure the boundary line is chosen. Make sure that Pick Walls is chosen. And I'm going to select this wall over here. Now, be careful when you pick. Because of the overhang, the sketch line is actually going to be drawn outside of the wall, naturally at 2 feet away, like the overhang indicates. And if you move the mouse slightly, you're going to see that dashed line appear on either the left or right. So I want to make sure that that dashed line is actually appearing on the outside of the wall because I want the overhang to the outside. Now, when I do that, I get a sketch line. I get the familiar flip grip, which if I accidentally pick on the wrong side, you can see it's pretty easy to flip it over to the other side, so not too big of a deal. And we get this little triangular indicator, which lets us know that this line is defining slope. And in fact, we can even click on the temporary dimension, and we can see that this is a 6 and 190. It's nearly 7. It was defaulting to 7 a minute ago, but it's 7 and 12 pitch. So we can change that to anything we like. For instance, if I made that 4, it would be a 4 and 12 pitch, so I can drop the pitch down slightly. I'm going to click over here and do the same thing, make that 4. And then if I want to create a hip roof, I could keep making sloping edges around the space. In other words, if I click right here and also make that 4, what I'm basically defining is a hip roof. Let me just go ahead and do that on all 4 sides. Click Modify. I don't want a lot of redundant edges over here, so I'm going to keep this one really simple. Clean it up like so with my trim tool. And what I've really got is these 4 slope-defining edges. Think of this as a hinge. So you're going to have a plane hinging at this point, sloping up. Hinging at this point, sloping up. Where they intersect, you'll get a ridge line running along the diagonal. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Let me click the Finish. And you can see here in Roof Plan View very clearly what we were just talking about. Here's our ridge lines. Here's our top peak up here. But it's probably a little bit easier to see this in either section or elevation. So what I'm going to do is scroll down and take a look at the south elevation, and you can see the pitch right there. If you look at this in either the east or west elevation, you can see it there. And of course, if we look at it in 3D, we can see it like so. Now, of course, this hip roof doesn't really match the layout of the building, so what we're going to do is actually modify it. So we can select it in any view, and you'll get this Edit Footprint button. Now, in the Adding Floors movie, I didn't show this, but it works exactly the same with floors. So if you select an existing floor or roof, you can choose Edit Footprint, and that takes you back to the sketch. Now, I could work right here in 3D and continue to make changes to this, or I could go back to the roof plan view, whatever view is convenient for you. Now, what I'm going to do is go back to Boundary Line, back to Pick Walls, and I'm going to turn off define slope this time. And I'm going to pick here and here. So you notice how that automatically trimmed up the corners for me. Now I'd get a sort of odd roof if I were to finish right now, because I have slope defining lines intersecting non-slope defining lines in strange ways. What I'm actually going to do is select this one, hold down the control key, which allows me to add to the selection, and I'm going to pick the other one across the way, and I'm going to uncheck define slope. When you do that, that's going to make this line and this line a gable end. So when I click finish, I get quite a different roof out of the final sketch. So a footprint roof can actually do a variety of things. Let's go ahead and do one more example. This one I'll do a totally new roof. Now, because I'm in 3D, Revit will ask me, well, what level do you want this roof to be associated with? Now, it's suggesting the highest level, which is logical, of course, but because I actually have 2 roof levels, I'm going to drop that down 1 level, and I'm going to say I really want this one to be on the low roof level, not the high one. So I'm going to say yes. Boundary line, pick walls. I'll make a slope defining line here, and then I'll turn off define slope and pick here and here, and then finally I'll draw just a plain old line from here to here. So I've created just sort of a simple rectangle with only one slope defining edge. Now it's pretty steep at 7 and 12, so I'm going to click on that and let's make it 2 and 12. Click finish, and looks like I've got a little gap there. Let's fix that. Just use the trim tool. That's going to happen sometimes when you're working in 3D. So to remedy that, you might want to work in floor plan, and then you'll get a better look at things. But that's a simple shed roof. So the same footprint roof can give us a hip roof, it can give us a gable roof, it can give us a shed roof, it can even give us a totally flat roof, but we'll look at that in another movie. So there's a couple different shapes and modifications we can make, but this gives you a little bit of an idea of how you can get started using a footprint roof.